Hello, welcome. I'm Jen with the Sewing Report. This channel is all about sewing crafts and DIY projects. And recently I did an embroidery project that turned out pretty well, but also had some challenges. Yes, I am referring to the elusive Windbreaker, because here in Florida, we don't really have much of a need for winter coats or parkas. This is a gift that I did for a friend of ours. Obviously, his name is Marty. So I wanted to walk you through the steps I took to get this Windbreaker all embroidered up here. Now, I have been getting quite a few questions about embroidery and digitizing, so I wanted to also take a few moments to answer some of those questions. First of all, you need to have specifically digitizing software for embroidery. You can't directly take like images from like Adobe Illustrator or a picture and just import those directly into your embroidery machine. You have to use software that can, there is software that you can take a picture and it'll turn it into an embroidery design, but it has to really be specified for stitching out that design and not just a picture. That does require embroidery software. There are quite a few different types. I've been using a very basic free version because I don't plan to do a lot of digitizing myself. So yes, if you do want to get a logo done or a picture or some sort of graphic design, you do have to specifically have embroidery software that has those capabilities. Or you can do what I've done, which is to find someone on Etsy that does digitizing. I don't really want to drop the money for software at this point because I just don't really plan on doing a lot of that. Every once in a while, I will need a logo or something else done, and I've been outsourcing that because overall it's cheaper. Usually I've been finding Etsy sellers that do it for between like $10 and $20 per design, which seems very reasonable. And I will link the person I did for this design below in the description box. I've used another shop as well, but they're currently not taking those types of orders. So that is one question that I wanted to answer real quickly. Okay, so let's get to the Windbreaker. I ordered this one from jiffyshirts.com. This is a website I've used quite a bit for blanks, t-shirts, hats, jackets, and I thought the quality of this Windbreaker was better than I expected. It was about $15. Comes in all different types of colors. This Windbreaker is not lined, but I actually found that to be more conducive to embroidery because I didn't have to worry about the lining getting like messed up or, you know, kind of misaligned with the outer portion. And the quality of this is pretty decent, and I didn't really have to do a lot of marking because I used this back line on the Windbreaker to line up my hoop. I used a 5x7 hoop for the back, and then I also did a left chest name. I thought that would be kind of fun. I just used the font that came with the Brother PE800. I just used one of the fonts there for that. And then I used my design. I had the digitizer do several different sizes. Now, one important thing to note is that if you're gonna do a new design or use a new type of fabric that you haven't really worked before, do not skip doing a test stitch. Believe me, you're gonna save yourself a lot of headache if you just see how it turns out, see how it stitches. I didn't use the same type of fabric because I didn't have like another ripstop nylon kind of situation here, but I just wanted to see how the design looked, and it came out pretty well on this knit fabric, so I decided to go for it. But I did learn a few lessons, and I wanted to share some of my problems and solutions with you so that if you're doing a Windbreaker or if you're embroidering some sort of nylon, ripstop fabric, polyester, that you don't run into these as well. First recommendation, use a Microtex needle. If you don't, you're gonna regret it. At first, I started stitching out the design with like a ballpoint needle. Just didn't go very well. For the first few stitches, the upper thread just kept, you know, coming undone. So I switched the needles and that solved the issue. So this was a 90/14, worked very well. Highly recommend these if you are going to do any sort of fabric that is like a nylon, ripstop nylon, that sort of fabric, yes, so something like this. Another issue I ran into is the fabric is very slippery. So at first I hooped it normally. I used cutaway stabilizer and I hooped it very tightly. And when it started stitching out the design, because it was a pretty dense design, the fabric started to pucker on certain portions when it was satin stitching. So I was starting to freak out and I was like, oh my gosh, is this Windbreaker going to be totally ruined? It didn't look too messed up at the end, so it's definitely still a very usable item. It looks very nice. When I moved on to the left chest portion, I decided to try something different. I still used the cutaway stabilizer using some temporary spray adhesive. and that seemed to work better. There was a little bit less puckering. So I think if you're worried about puckering, definitely try this method instead, because I think that definitely helped, because no matter how tightly you hoop the fabric, it's still going to keep slipping through, and you could cause yourself some issues if you have a very dense or very large design like I was working with. So those are just a few things I encountered when I was embroidering this windbreaker. It turned out pretty well though, and I'm really excited to gift this. Another thing I want to note is you really want to be careful when you're cutting away your stabilizers in the back. You could inadvertently cut into or make a slit or tear this fabric. It is pretty delicate. So I would recommend using applique scissors if you have them. If you don't, that's okay too, but just be very careful and very mindful when you are cutting this out, because the last thing you want to do is accidentally cut some sort of rip or tear or slit into your newly embroidered jacket. For a blank, this was actually kind of expensive and I didn't have any backups, so I couldn't afford to mess this one up, and luckily it turned out okay in the end. For thread choice, I just used the standard white color that came in my Embroidery starter kit, and I usually stitch around 350 stitches per minute. I know it's a little bit slow, but I'm totally okay with that. And I will link all of the supplies I used down below in the description box. This is just what worked out for me, and I'm really excited to maybe do some more windbreakers in the future. It was a pretty easy and quick project. I just ran into a few slight issues that I just wanted to share with you, but I hope you found this video helpful. I also have a lot of other embroidery videos here on this channel, so thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. I'm Jennifer with the Sewing Report.